Hello, welcome back to Mike Love's fanfic content. Yes, I'm reading another chapter of Love Me Twice, Save Me Thrice. I can't wait to hit you up with the chapter 8. Okay, so the last chapter that we have talked about this, they've been going well, they're finally aware. I mean, all the stuff have been going well so far, but they have to get serious they wanted to get back, doing all the normal stuff. And Keith has to aware there might be a second shoe to drop. So there is going to be something happening right now between the fair realm and the human realm. So we're getting to this moment that this is going to be it. We're reaching out to this rising action, and then we hit into the climax. So let's go at it that way. Okay, let's reach chapter 8, shall we? Okay, let's go. Chapter 8. Never let them see you falter. As restless as they've been, and as worried and nervous as the situation has made them, the past few weeks with Lance have been a dream. He's been happy, truly and unabashedly happy. And so has Lance. Keith can see it. The way he's able to really be himself. Around Keith, around Jiro, around Pidge and Hunk, he's been able to watch Lance nearly bloom, and it's been beautiful. But unfortunately, all dreams must end. He wakes one morning to find Lance already awake, curled up at his side, legs tangled, propped up on the elbow while the other hand rests on Keith's chest, feeling his breath, feeling his heartbeat, protecting his mark. Keith meets his gaze, so open in his sorrow and worry, and Keith knows it's time. They're reluctant to get out of bed. They take their time with it, kissing sweetly as the sun filters through the blinds, losing themselves in the feeling of each other's lips, hands roaming, not hungry but delicately memorizing each other. And when they finally manage to slip from bed, they take a long shower, where things get more heated, touches more insistent, more desperate to feel more, to have each other pressed close and gasping and strung out tight. They get dressed slowly, and the reluctance is palpable. Lance dons his glamour, weaving together a beautiful, fanciful, and elaborate court outfit from nothing but light and magic. And with his glamour, his mask starts to slip back into place. A sound that projects and means so little. An expression carved from animated stone. Eyes flickering like gemstones, but nothing more than mirrors and smoke. He's beautiful. Otherworldly. Fey. He reaches out, if only to assure himself that Lance isn't as untouchable as he seems. And just for a moment, a genuine smile breaks through. Gemstone eyes something. He meets Keith's hand with his own, takes it and holds it to his cheek, nuzzling into the palm, kissing his fingertips, each one, gentle and feather-light. Then he pulls Keith in, fingers in his hair, foreheads pressed tight. I'll miss you. Be safe. Lance slips out into the backyard, and as quick and grateful as he is, he disappears into the breeze, over the fence, into the woods, gone like he had never been there. The only evidence that remains is the single forget-me knot that Keith finds tucked behind his ear. Okay, that's the start off where they have this laptop, and this is the last time they're together. And it's time for Lance to, go away, go back to the realm, and protect one another, or something. So, they might be safe, and that's all. But, let's just go on to the next one. Sure. Okay. Going back to work is a surreal experience. His head is only half in it, thoughts distant and fixated on Lance. There are times spent together and worried about what's happening at court, but his body remembers what to do. Figuring with weather permitting, driving to work is safer than taking the subway, seeing as the Fae seem to know to look for him there, and his bike helmet is at least hid his identity. The entire drive flies by in a daze. He handles his bike with muscle memory, going along the familiar streets, where his eyes dart along the sides of the road, flinching at every shimmering sign of fate. When he gets to work, he parks in the back. They don't know if the Winter Court knows where he works, or if they know that Shiro owns this shop, or even if they're keeping an eye on Shiro. But in the past few weeks, Shiro hadn't noticed any suspicious activity. In fact, it's been quiet enough that he's let Pitch come back into work. Both of them look up when he comes in from the back, Shiro hovering near one of the chairs, halfway through a setup, and Pitch at the front desk. They look surprised, eyes wide and brows furrowed. Key cups them all before they can ask a question. Lance went back. That's all he says. All he needs to say. Their expression go from surprise to understanding to sympathy. He ducks away from it, hurrying to the back office to drop off his things. He steps back out with his iPad in hand, keeping his head down, avoiding their curious and calculating eyes. Pitch, can you start calling all my clients that we put on hold and start rescheduling their appointments? Sure thing. And bless her, honestly, for not pushing it, for not asking questions, for letting Key attempt to slip back into normalcy. Don't know if you'll get any today, though. We didn't know you were coming in. Neither did he. It's alright. I'll take any walk-ins. Work on some stencils I've been putting off. And it's strange to work again, to settle into his space, in his chair, with his tablet in front of him, and sketching out designs like he so used to, but hasn't done in a while. Especially strange to do when his heart and head are elsewhere, when his thoughts are on Lance and his chest aches. It feels so empty. Not empty like before, not the same cold void of nothingness that he's lived with for 10 years, not feeling and having a piece of missing and not knowing what. No, this is a new kind of emptiness. The emptiness that comes with having felt complete and whole, and then part of that wholeness taken from you. No, that's not quite right either. Lance wasn't taken from him. He's just gone. For now, but not forever. It's the ache of loneliness, of missing someone you hold so dear, someone who makes everything better and brighter, of wishing someone was there and knowing they can't be, and they can't even text or call Lance to assuage the ache. When he's in the Fey realm, it's just silence. Not to mention the worry of what's happening, wondering if he's okay, worrying about what Allura might ask of him, or what the court might say, or what the Winter Court might do. He might be the target of the last attack, but he finds he's far more worried about Lance's safety than his own. His gaze catches of the vase of forget-me-nots on his station, beautiful and pristine, not a petal out of place, as perfect as the day each of them was found. He takes this to mean Lance is safe, and he smiles, allowing himself to dwell on the lingering memory of Lance's lips pressed against his own, so sweet and warm. He misses Lance. He worries, but he'll be alright. They'll be alright. He supposes this is the feeling he'll have to get used to if he wants to keep Lance in his life, and that thought makes the burden feel lighter. Because if this ache is the price of loving Lance, then he is more than happy to bear it. Keith went back to work, and he went back to work like it's nothing, but it's very different than what it used to be. It's so different. And it feels, odd. And it's the new emptiness that he has in it. So this is it's better to, let go of Lance. Let go of all the loving stuff and all what he remembered is just Lance. He has to use to it because they don't know if they are dangerous. They don't know if they're coming after Keith. They don't know something bad is happening. We just have to keep it a little safe. So, yeah. Very, very odd. As strange as it feels to go back to his normal life and normal routine after everything that had happened, after everything he's remembered, it's almost surprisingly easy. He settles back into everything, into the life he's built for himself, but just with more knowledge about himself, about his history, about Shiro, about Lance, and it feels better. He feels stronger for it. Despite the mark on his chest, he feels closer to Shiro than ever now that there's no more hiding and no more pretending. He takes their training sessions seriously, and Shiro no longer has to find reasons to push Ki into it. He knows what they're for now, and he'll train gladly, long into the night, until they're both covered in sweat, magic depleted, and bodies exhausted. If anything, it's a good distraction that keeps him from dwelling on thoughts of Lance. And when he goes to shower, he spends time in front of the mirror, shirtless, fingers tracing the brand of the winter night, embracing the small bubble of the pride that simmers in his chest. Because the pride is easier to do with than the fear. Because the pride means that he saved Lance's life. And he'll never regret that. He spends time with Pidge. Together, they spend more time with Honk, who seems much more at ease now that Keith knows. In fact, he's more than willing to share stories about how insufferable Lance has been watching Keith from afar. There are stories that make Keith's heart ache a little less, makes him smile a little more. Lance may not be around all the time, and he may miss him terribly, but he has good friends. Yeah, I can comprehend that. So yeah, without Lance, Keith is just, feeling as normal as possible. Feel like he's going back to normal. And pretend that Lance doesn't exist. And that he's happy with it. Well, Lance is gone and went back to the court, so it's better. It's better to do that. For now. Well, Keith is finally back to normal. For now. Okay. Alright, let's get into the text one. So let's get into this. It's a week before Keith finally gets a text. I'm back. Meet me in the woods near the fairy ring. It's simple, straightforward, to the point. Which is, admittedly, not like Lance at all. But Keith can't bring himself to care, because it's Lance, and he's back. He can't admit to himself in the privacy of his own mind that his heart skips a beat when he sees the text. That warmth surges through him like a fire prickling beneath his skin, that he can practically feel his magic humming in his veins, vibrating with excitement and bubbling with anticipation. He can't admit to himself that he's got it bad, and yet he can't bring himself to care. He's already typing up a reply as he stands. I'm at work. I'll have to go home and pick up Cosmo. No, come alone. There's no time. Hurry. Keith's heart skips a beat again, but this time for entirely different reasons. A cold shiver of dread crawls down his spine, putting out the fire and bringing with it a chill that settles deep in his bones. His hands shake as he types, breath coming short and shallow. What's happened? Are you okay? He doesn't wait for an answer before he's packing up his things, haphazardly cleaning up his station and tossing his tablet into his bag. Where are you going? Pidge asks, for where she's leaning back in her chair, feet kicked up on front desk. Got a text from Lance. Gotta go. Oh, so Loverboy calls and you come running. There's humor in her voice, a playful tease, but Key doesn't smile. Cover for me, he says, short and clipped as he tosses his bag into the back room. He won't need it where he's going, and he can always come back for it later. When Shiro comes back, just tell him I went to pick up Lance. Pidge picks up on the urgency in his voice, expression pinching to a concerned scowl. She says, You got it. Keith? He pauses, one hand on the back door, glance over his shoulder. Be careful, okay? At that, he smiles. I will. And he hesitates, biting at his bottom lip, eyes flickering to the front windows and the street beyond. Will you be okay here by yourself until Shiro comes back? She rolls her eyes, waving her off. Yeah, I got it. I'm a big girl, Keith. Well, if that's a short joke about to leave your mouth, I suggest you shut it. He does, with his mouth. She goes back. Go on then. Get your man. Thank you, Pidge. No problem. He hurries out the back of the building, pulling his helmet roughly over his head and throwing himself over his bike. He pulls out of the back lot with a roaring engine and burns rubber on the asphalt. Wow, we got text messages coming through. So, hey, Will you see how that far go? That Lance wants to meet Keith. Oh, Lance wants Keith to meet him on the ferry. I think they might conversate about something. Oh, okay, sure. So yeah, Keith, go to Lance. I'm wondering what he's going to say. It goes against his instinct to be here, in these woods, so close to a large ferry, one that sees such frequent use from Fae of both courts. He comes here before, of course, both to greet Lance and to say goodbye, but all those times he had Cosmo. Half a second is all it would take for him to blink far, far away from here. It may have been dangerous, foolish even, but he had a safety net. Here and now, he's on his own. He can feel the magic vibrating in the air, rippling across his skin. It calls to him, and makes his hair stand on end. It's a warning and a temptation all in one. If he listens carefully, he can hear the faint, crackling static of the portal itself. It makes him shiver, stomach twisting with dread. He puts a hand to his chest, fingers pressing along the lines of his brand beneath his clothes. He can't feel them, but he knows they're there. He feels far more exposed than he used to, raw, vulnerable, despite the mark being hidden from sight. He stayed off the main path so far, knowing better than to walk along the ferry paths without Cosmo at his side. Instead, he crept through the woods, leaving his bike close enough to reach should he need it, but far enough away to avoid suspicion. Hidden just off a back road, obscured by a bush, he pauses, glancing around, brows furrowed and lips pursed. He listens, but hears nothing. Nothing substantial. Nothing but the wind and distant static. Even so, every rustle of leaves has his head snapping to it, adrenaline thick in his veins and fear in his throat. But there's never anything there. His relief, however, is short-lived. Animals don't even come this close, and yet he still hasn't seen any sign of Lance. He crouches low, putting his back to a tree and keeping to the shadows while he pulls out his phone. There's still no response since his last text, and that can't be a good sign. He tries not to read too far into it, but he can't help it. Lance hadn't been acting right, and the urgency is alarming. He hopes it's not too late. I'm here. Where are you? Are you okay? He waits, and waits, and waits. He grits his teeth, eyes locked on his phone, occasionally flickering to his surroundings when the wind picks up and the forest rustles. The ferry ring is a constant buzz, distant but present, calling to him, itching across the back of his neck. Come on, Lance, he whispers to himself, trying to find calm and strength in his voice. I swear to God, if you don't answer me. He closes his eyes, hunching over to press his phone to his forehead, breath shallow and short as he waits for it to vibrate. A snap of a twig nearby. The wind rolls by, bringing with it a chill that dances across his skin. He gasps, head snapping up and scrambling to his feet, heart pounding in his throat, smile already curling his lips. Lance, he breathes, turning, one hand on the tree. He puts around it. Lance, he freezes, heart stopping in his chest. The chill in the air isn't the playful crisp breeze of an autumn morning. It's barely cold, and it's getting worse by the second. A cold that feels like sharp needles pricking across his flesh, crystallizing, seeping down to his bones, finding the natural fire that burns in his chest. He shivers violently, body tensing as it vibrates through him from head to toe. This isn't the chill that Lance's presence brings. This isn't the cold air of a night around a bonfire. This is ice. This is winter. A rustling catches his attention, and his head snaps in that direction. Eyes, four of them, slitted and narrow, glowing faintly yellow, carved into a narrow, bone-white face, tall body with limbs far too long to be human, dark cloak blending into the shadows. Another rush of cold wind, and he sees another, coming from another direction, both of them in the shadows of the forest, eyes on him, pinning him with their gazes, slowly creeping forward, moving without touching the plants around them, as if they moved by shadow, as if the forest itself bent out of their path. And then a rush of wind hits him from behind, causing him to stumble a step. A bit of chill that cuts through his clothes, tearing through his ribs. Well, well, isn't this a wonder? That voice. It fizzles through Keats like lightning, sharp and sudden, leaving him trembling in shock, trying to get his bearings, trying to place the memory to the fear in that voice. I had heard that two of you had been seen together. I had known he was quite fond of you, but I doubted even he could wrap a knight around his fingers so thoroughly. He knows that voice. He knows it. He knows it. He's frozen, heart's in his throat. Breath's coming short and quick. His mind feels scrambled, but his body remembers. He remembers the fear. Remembers rage. It seems I was wrong. He clings to the rage, feels it burn hot, clings to it and uses it as a spark to ignite the magic in his core, feeling the flames unfurl, blooming, flickering out hot and wild in his veins, melting away the chill of fear, burning through the eyes of dread. He's concerned, he's surrounded, but he's sure as not out. Not yet. This is what Shiro has been training for. His forearm burns, birthmark igniting in fire as his magic surges. He doesn't have time to dwell on the prickling needles beneath his skin, just grits his teeth against the pain, uses the familiarity of it to ground himself as dagger surges out of his palm. It's quick, it's fluid, he's been practicing. The moment his fingers curl around the handle, he's whipping around, falling to a defensive stance with the weapon held at the ready. His other hand curls, flame flickering between his fingertips, pulled from his palm. Fire magic. He's been practicing that too. The man, the Fae, isn't like the others. Isn't one of the cloaked henchmen that the Winter Queen has sent after him before. He isn't the same sort of Fae that watches him from the woods. He's a high Fae, just like Lance. He's tall, far taller than any human King has ever known. Broad shoulders and a narrow waist, arms just a hair too long, fingers eerily slender and clawed. Features too sharp to be human, long pointed ears and long snow-white hair pushing back from his forehead to fall down his back. Purple irises nestled in staringly yellow sclera. A wicked and charming smile, too confident, too casual, too malicious beneath the glint of his fangs. Despite being in the human realm, he doesn't wear glamour. He knows him. He knows him. Oh my. He eyes Keith's dagger curiously, head to the side, smirk Colonel Ryder. Memora blood, how serendipitous. Phew. His eyes pick up to Keith's, one delicate brow raising. Me, he says, unimpressed. Do you know me? I know of you. Keith growls between clenched teeth. He spits a name. Lotor, Prince of the Winter Court. The one who had tried to get Lance's real name. The one who had left Lance to die in a collapsed building full of iron dust. Very good. His grin is positively light. Makes Keith stop roll. Then I shall forego introductions, and we shall get down to business. Shall we? He snaps his fingers, and there's a spark. Just before the wind rushes in, cold and biting. It swirls around Keith in a vortex, too quickly for him to do anything but brace himself. Eyes squeezed shut against the force of it, hair and clothes whipping and snapping. Hands on his arms. No, claws. Large hands with fingers that are too long, curled and sharp. They grab one arm, twisting it painfully behind his back. He shouts, tries to fight it, but the other hands are at his other arm, nails digging into his forearm, biting into his birthmark. He feels magic pressing into him, into that spot, trying to dampen his blood magic, trying to get him to dismiss his dagger. He grits his teeth and opens his eyes. The wind has died down, but it's bitterly cold. The hands on him feels like ice. They burn. He finds himself face to face with one of the cloaked Fae, the narrow bone face showing nothing but four slitted yellow eyes. No pupils, no irises. The bone face narrows at the bottom, jutting out from the hood. He sees nothing beneath it, only darkness. He's not sure if it's a mask or the Fae's skull. The hands on his arm are covered in gray skin. Each finger has an extra joint. Beneath the mask, he has here an inhuman hiss, echoed and disjointed. He glares at it, spits in his face, and when it recoils, he rips his arm from its grasp, slashing at it with his dagger, to force it to step away, then turning on the one standing behind him, holding his arm behind his back. A sharp click of the tongue catches his attention. Now, now, none of that. As he turns, intent on attacking the Fae behind him, he catches sight of Lotor and freezes. There, dangling between Lotor's fingers, is Lance's phone. What? I suggest you surrender yourself. Lotor lifts a brow, pinning him with a sharp gaze. And put that blade of yours away. Where's Lance? He spits, struggling once more when the Fae grabs his arm again. But his struggles are half-hearted. Gaze still locked on Lotor. His grin is toothy, his fangs sharp. Stop fighting my mother's servants, and I will tell you. He pauses, not out of surrender, but out of suspicion. He narrows his eyes. Are you making a deal with me? I am trying, yes. He dangles his phone once more, tauntingly. Just know that wherever your dear Lance is, he will not be needing this anymore. He drops it to the ground, letting it settle before slamming his heel down on it, shattering the glass. He winces, and feels his own will shatter along with it. Everything in him is telling him to fight. His father's warnings, Shira's voice, his own instincts. But Lance, and if they have Lance, Keith needs to know. If they have Lance, if they hurt. Fine, he bites out, letting his body go limp. He releases his dagger, and for the briefest of moments, his magic protests, still running hot and heavy in his veins, and its very blood humming with power, and a drive to fight, run, survive. But he forces it down, and the dagger slips back into his palm, settling back beneath his skin, prickling and ripping, like an angry snake eager to strike. It doesn't take them long to take advantage of this. They shove them to his knees, both arms wrenched behind his back, cause him to hiss in pain. He kneels there, hunched and panting, with adrenaline, with fear, with rage, as Lothar steps closer, over the remains of Lance's crushed phone to loom over him. And then he kneels down, putting them on eye level. Keith meets his gaze, and refuses to look away. He's defying everything he had ever been taught about dealing with the Fae, but those rules won't protect him now. Not when he's the Winter Knight, not when they see him as part of their court. Those rules, after all, are for preemptive protection. They do nothing when he's already this deep. So he glares at Lotor, stares with a challenge in his eyes, jaw set and scowl darkening his features. He debates whether or not to spit in his face. Decides to wait until after he hears about Lance. You're an interesting one, aren't you? Lothar muses, unperturbed by Keith's unflinching gaze. If anything, he seems intrigued by it. He searches Keith's face, intent and thoughtful, calculating and sharp. Yes, it's definitely you. But just to make sure, his hand comes out suddenly, grabbing Keith's collar and ripping downward. He tries to jerk away, but it is held still. A half-formed shout of protest caught in his throat. But there's nothing he can do as Lothar's sharp claws tear his shirt, shredding down to the front to reveal the mark on his chest. Ah, there it is. So my mother's intel was correct. His eyes flicker back up to Keith's. And there's something there. Something beneath the casual confidence that he displays. Something that doesn't show in his voice nor his demeanor. There are ripples of it across the mask of an expression he wears, but it's gone before Keith can piece it together. Your defiance will have to be dealt with. Some would think we should just kill you to give the mantle to someone more deserving. But I believe you will do just fine. His hand darts out again, catching Keith's jaw, holding it painfully in a tight grip, nails biting into his skin. Where's Lance? He bites out, trying and failing to pull his chin out of Lotus' grasp. Yes, of course. A deal is a deal, isn't it? Faye just smirks, amused, cocky. At the summer court, no doubt at Allura's side, as she entertained an envoy of Winter Fae that I sent specifically to distract them. Still, this human contraption of his was fairly simple. I had my doubts about whether or not you will respond, but I underestimated your blind attachment to Lance. Keith's heart drops. The chill from the Fae's hands seep into his bones, cooling his own magic, making goosebumps rise. Even his blood goes still. There's a ringing in his ears. Fear is a lump in his throat. He can't breathe. And now we have our night. He forced Keith's chin up, his head at a painful angle as he looms over him, breath cold on his cheek. But this will never do. You're far too human like this. We'll have to remove this pesky glamour from you. Glamour? But he doesn't. I don't. Lothor's nails digging harder, cutting him off. Something flashed in his eyes. Something that's gone just as quickly as it arrived. Something that doesn't bleed out onto his mask. But Keaton knows that look. A warning? Of course you do. All changelings are giving a glamour at birth. A strong one at that. Pesky things. Out of their control and difficult to remove. Especially one that's been left intact for this long. No wonder you went so long undetected. But no matter. It's nothing I can't handle. Before I can think of what to say, before it even fully processes, cold surges out of Lothor's fingers. Unlike anything he's felt before, it burns. But it's not like his own magic does. It's invasive. It's painful. It creeps across his skin like ice, and he can feel it crystallize. It moves quickly, and he struggles. But they hold him, and he can't fight it. It presses against him, a magic so thick and choking, it fills the air, cold and suffocating. He gasps for air, but the ice fills his nose, slips past his parted lips, dives deep into his lungs. He's never felt so cold, so empty, so hollow and numbed. Not even his fear can break through, muted and distant as his mind retreats in on himself, pulling away from his body as it chased away by this foreign magic. All he can do is stare at Lothor, eyes wide, fear crawling down his spine. Lothor tilts his head. His purple eyes glow, swirling with fractals of magic. His smile is apologetic, but he does not apologize. Fae never do. This will hurt. And then, all he knows is pain. The ice crystallize on his skin turns to shards, digging deep, tearing and ripping, pulling him apart at the seams, searing his flesh from his bones and piercing those, freezing his blood as it boils and writhes in protest. He thinks he screams. His throat aches with it, but he can't hear it. And then all he knows is darkness. Holy crap. Wow. I finally got myself down to nerves, but yeah, Kate finally met Lothor, the prince of the Winter Court. Ooh, I'm wondering what he'll do about it, but Lothor decided, nope, I will not have becoming the knight. Claw all the way through, and this is holy shoot, guys. Finally get into the darkness now. Yep, you're into that storm, so hey, welcome. Welcome to the storm. Hopefully it does go away by the end of it, but we'll see how that storm settles. He comes to consciousness slowly, shying away from it as his head aches with every beat of his heart. Every pulse sends pain sizzling through him, splitting his head, frying his veins, crackling across his limbs. His skin is hypersensitive, feeling raw and new. He's never been flayed, but goddamn is that the image that comes to mind as he thinks about the ice encasing his body before magic burned deep. As much as he tries to pull away from his pounding headache, he can't defy the surge of consciousness. And as he comes back into his body, he tries to take a note of everything. Everything hurts. There's a bone-deep ache, not unlike the day after a heavy sparring session. But there is more than that. There is the raw, tingling sensation on his skin, like he can feel every fiber of his clothes, every shift in the air, and every detail in the floor below him. It's cold, for one. Rough, uneven stones, large and rounded at the edges, closely fit together. They're smooth, but it doesn't feel purposeful. It feels natural, due to years and years of being worn down, like cobblestones, but tighter and neater. His cheek presses to the cold surface, and the chill is at least soothing to the pain pounding in his head. His hands twitch, fingers curling, nails scraping along the stone. His nails had never been this long before, but there is some definite distance between nail tip and the pad of his fingers, and there's definitely a sharp scrape as he drags them against the stone. Not to mention, his nail beds ache, now that he's focusing on them. He never thought that would be a place to ache, but here he is. He opened his eyes, only to have his vision swim. He squeezes them shut, groaning as his body starts tense, uncurling in on himself as he struggles to shake off the clinging fog of unconsciousness. When he tries again, everything's still swimming, spinning, but he blinks rapidly and fiercely, and slowly things start to focus. He focuses on the ground first, right in front of his face. Stone, just as he thought, cobbled together with the perfect squares that are smooth on the edges from wear. Dark stone, some dirt and dust. Clearly, it hasn't been cleaned in some time. And just in front of him, a large maroon rug. Although dirty, it looks plush and silky and soft to the touch. But of course, he was left on the stone floor rather than that rug. Still, a rug like that seems out of place for a prison cell, which is what he expected to wake up in, because he very much remembers the cloaked bone-faced Fae, the eyes of their touch being forced to his knees. Lotor. Lotor! His magic burning across Key's skin, ripping him apart. He should look around, get his bearings, figure out where he is and how to escape. He has to get home. To Shiro. To Lance. But then his eyes catch on his hand, and his breath catches as his heart leaps into his throat. He freezes, body once more going rigid, and he stares and tries to make sense of it. Blinks because surely this must be a dream. But it doesn't go away, doesn't fade like an illusion. He clenches his fist, but nothing changes. Spreads his fingers wide, but it stays the same. His hand looks mostly the same as it always has, but his skin, it's purple. His nails are dark and grown thick, just a little longer than his fingertip, moving into manicured points. Claws. He stares and stares and stares. But it doesn't change. It's just his hand. Pushing his hands to the floor, he pushes himself up, shifting until he's sitting. It makes his head spin, and he has to close his eyes for a moment, breathing long and slow to steady himself. And when he opens his eyes, he stares down at his palms. They're both like that, purple and clawed. He hastily shrugs out of his jacket, only to find his arms are, too. They look no different than they had before. They're just purple. Frick, he breathes. But his jaw aches, his gums ache, and his teeth feel weird as he forms the F sound. His hands shoot to his mouth, only to push the pad of his thumb against fangs, four of them, two top and two bottom. Not huge, but definitely noticeable. Sharp, too, wincing as he pulls his thumb away. What the hell? Then he finally looks around and finds himself gapping. The room he's in, it's beautiful. The ceiling rises in domes, pillars from the walls creating interlacing archways high above. The floor and walls are all made from the same dark stone, and the masonry is exquisite. The pillars periodically around the room, half embedded into the walls, are intricately carved, decorated with the scenes and symbols that he can quite make out from his spot on the floor. The maroon rug takes up much of the center of the room, and he finds that he was dumped just inside the door. A large door made of dark, heavy wood. The furniture is made of the same sort of wood, some of it with a deep red hue. They're all large and elaborate, needlessly complicated and designed. In the bottoms of them, sprawling roots crawl out, like the things had been planted and grown from the stone itself. A dresser, a vanity, a table, and two cushioned tall back chairs, several bookshelves, an ornate writing desk, a window seat, wide and cushioned, and a large, elaborate four-post bed raised up on a short dais, sheer curtains draped around it. Everything is in colors of deep red, dark purple, and blue, navy blues, midnight blues, slate blues and grays, black and white. Decorations are many and rich, from the blankets on the bed to the tall curtains that cover windows on the far wall, to the rug, to the chairs, to the tapestries that hang from the walls. While the windows are covered, there are several wooden sconces around the walls, curling from the stone like plants, shaped perfectly to hold large crystals about the size of Keith's head. They are light blue, glowing faintly, casting the room in an icy light. It's a bedroom, a very rich and elaborate bedroom, a bedroom that's dressed for royalty, a bedroom that hovers on this strange edge between being warm, inviting, and homey. to being too formal, cold, and decorative, and most of it is covered in a layer of dust. He climbs to his feet, legs shaking as he makes his way over to a large ornate mirror that stands not too far away. He stumbles, he stumbles in front of it, freezing as he takes himself in. The surface is grimy and disused, but he can use himself. He can see what he's become. His skin is purple all over, a very light shade of purple. Upon closer inspection, a pale violet. His hair is no longer black, but a dark purple, but the bottom layer is different, a shade of deep magenta. His ears are longer, pointed at the tips and at the lobes, and his eyes, the whites, are now yellow. He leans close, pressing his fingers into his face. His fangs, his hair, his ears, it's all so real. He's so different, and yet he's not different at all. His bone structure didn't change. His proportions didn't change. He's not otherworldly and doesn't have a face that's too sharp. He's just himself, but purple. But that's still a very strange thing. He stumbles a back step, taking it all in. He still wears clothes, jacket discarded on the floor, and shirt torn open the front to reveal a pale violet chest with a black insignia of the winter night. And that's when it really starts to sink in. The air here is different than he used to. There's a vibration in it, subtle but definite, constant, dancing across his skin and weaving through his hair and filling every breath. It's an energy. It's power. Not good or evil, just magic. It fills him, coaxes that tight knot of fire he keeps buried in his chest, stokes the flames gently until a hearth fire burns beneath his ribs. His blood bubbles with it, reaching for the magic that flickers across his skin with the breeze. Eager and excited. The air here is thicker. It feels alive. Everything feels alive. He's never been here, but he knows where he is. He's in the Fey realm. And yes, he is. He's the Fey realm. He realizes now where he is. I gotta see what happens right now because his face has been changed. He made it to the Fey realm and now he changed. He feels so very different than he used to. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Well, he kind of lives into the realm. He's in the Winter Court. So it feels so different than it was used to live, but I see that now. So you probably understand about the Fays. If you understand about the Fey realms, yeah, everything seems different than it used to be. I have never touched the Fey realm. I should just understand. I should just read some of the Fey articles or something because I have never read this. This is a different AU, so I might have to look upon it and look forward to it so that I can understand why they look so different. Upon closer inspection, Keith has come to the conclusion that although it looks as though he's in the bedroom, he's most certainly trapped in said bedroom. There seems to be a barrier around the door and the windows, allowing him to get close but not to actually touch. It's invisible until it reaches out, shimmering to existence and feeling like ice when he touches it. It may not look like it, but he's not fooled. This room is his prison. When the door finally opens, Keith is waiting. He sits in one of the tall back cushion chairs, jacket back on and zipped up to cover his chest, arms crossed, one foot on the ground and the other on the edge of the small table, knee bent. He glares at the door, expecting either a black cloak Fae or Lotor, or even the Winter Queen. The woman who walks in is none of those things. At least he assumes so. She doesn't look like much of a queen. Pale blue skin and dark blue hair that falls into her jawline, two sets of two black horns that lie close to her skull, half obscured by her hair, pointed ears, yellow sclera, dark lips. She's not as tall as Lothar, probably close to Keith's height, but she holds herself like she is, like she's important, like she expects to be obeyed, like she's commanding respect, like a general. Are you sure you don't need us in there? Lothar said he was wild. Another figure stands in the doorway, peering through. A much larger Fae, bulky, and built intimately strong. large eyes narrow in Keith's direction. He doesn't look it, though. We can help rough him up for you. Another figure. Tall, lean, and lithe. A long ponytail of various colors and bright, curious eyes as she leans around the larger one. Come on, let us play with the fresh blood. That won't be necessary. The first Fae turns to them, one hand on the door. Don't let anyone in until I'm done with him. Lotor's orders. Then the door closes, and they're alone. The sound stretches as they size each other up. Her gaze rovers over him, her face a mask of indifference. She looks bored, uninterested, but Keith knows how to read Faye. He can see the sharp look in her eyes, and how carefully she considers him. He glares back, giving her not an inch of ground. When she starts to move toward him, he tenses, but she doesn't touch him, doesn't really approach him. She falls into the other chair across the table and lets out a small, frustrated sigh. Lifts an eyebrow as she relaxes back, arms resting on the arms of the chair, hands dangling at the wrist. She looks almost relaxed, almost tired, but still held at the ready, just on edge, much like him. She says nothing, and neither does he. She glares at Keith, and he glares back. Her eyes narrow, and so do his. Their lips twitch at one corner, and he dares to think she's smiling. You can call me Aksha, she says simply. She waits for a moment, and when he says nothing, she continues. I've heard I can call you Keith. When he keeps silence, she sighs, leaning her head back against the seat, eyes still in his. I'm not here to hurt you. At least he can take that for the truth. Then why are you here? He bites her. Why am I here? Her smirk holds no real amusement. Her tone wry as she says, I think you know why you're here. He scoops, just a short puff of an exhale through his nose, and she continues. As for why I'm here, I've been sent with a message and to prepare you. He holds himself steady. Prepare me for what? Her eyes flickered between his, observing his face and quickly darting to his posture before returning. In 3 days' time, you'll be introduced to the court. Lotor has convinced them to keep you as our knight, and so you must be prepared. Prepared how? Prepared for what you will face as a member of this court, as an important member of this court. She waves an idle hand, gesture around them. Not everyone gets a room like this. Not everyone gets a prison like this. Your tongue is sharp, she observes, useful in some instances, but you will need to learn how to hold it in others, if you want to survive. He feels the cold shiver of dread creeping down his spine. Is that part of my preparations? She nods. Partially. You'll also need to learn our customs. For as wild as you were made out to be, and for how sharp your tongue is, you're surprisingly good at hiding your thoughts. That is good. It'll make things easier. You also need to learn how to use glamour. Her eyes flickered down, and eyebrow raising. You will need to be presented in proper attire, and here we use our glamour to weave our clothes. I don't. He catches himself, nearly biting his tongue as his mouth shut. His jaw works for a moment, gums aching where his fangs have grown in. He takes a breath. I don't know how to do that. And because he can't admit that he doesn't have it, that would out him immediately. And he's very aware of what courts he's in and how they see Ironbloods. Her smile, however, small, is sharp, eyes sparkling with amusement. That is why I'm here to teach you. All Fae can harness basic illusion magic. Glamour in our blood, no matter how diluted. His heart skips a beat, and his eyes narrow. They won't expect your glamour to be perfect, she continues. In fact, because they believe you to be a changeling, they will expect it to be terrible, and they will mock you for it. They will mock you for everything. You must hold your tongue, because they believe you to be. Keith has grown up with Shiro, and Lance, he realizes, with a pleasant fluttering of his heart. He's grown up with tame Fae who dance around the truth, and has learned to read subtext, to read around the truth that's presented to him. You know, he breathes, wearing low. She nods once more, giving him a knowing look. Lotor has informed the court that you are a changeling, who has been unaware of his heritage, wrapped up and sealed in a glamour by the summer court to keep you hidden from us. Keith's eyes widen, paused in his ears. He knows. He has convinced them that you need time to prepare for your duties, and they will be showing you off to the court in 3 days. They've even invited an envoy from the summer court to witness and confirm the knight's return. The silence stretches. Aksha watches him, observant and still as stone, and Keith tries to process, to collect himself, to hold his composure as he tries to figure what all of this means. Why do I look like this? He whispers, meeting her gaze. Is this a spell he puts on me? Aksha regards him for a moment, taking him in, hesitant almost curiously. No, these are characteristics that reside in your blood. All of you. She says it carefully, but he hears the unvoiced word, iron bloods. Have these traits, but they are deeply buried. I do not think they would ever emerge of their own, but Lotor, the royal bloodlines have strong magic. He was able to pull your true self to the surface. Kate scopes, looking away with a roll of his eyes. This isn't my true self. It is. Her voice lowers, a whisper that he's surprised he can hear. He speaks hushed and quick. The intensity of her gaze makes him shiver. This is what you would look like if your human blood didn't dampen your fey blood. This is who you would have been if you had grown up in our lands. She pauses, thought for a moment. You still look very human, but we can work with that. It gives you a look of the high fae, though as a Mamora, I suppose you are. Just a disgraced bloodline. But the court will think the more human look is a choice, which will be believable given your changeling story. Though be prepared for them to mock you for it. I don't expect any kindness for them. Aksha's smirk is beginning to charm. Good. Then you may just survive. You said you also had a message for me. She nods, then sits up, putting her arms on the table and leaning forward. He doesn't want to get close to her, but there's something about the shift in her demeanor. Something in the hardened look in her eyes. Something about the way she frowns, just slightly. It makes him lean forward, but worried but curious. She looks far more serious than she had moments ago, and somehow he feels like the mask has been dropped. My lover is not common knowledge, she says, voice barely above a whisper, making Keith lean a fraction more. Her jaw works from side to side, her eyes darting to the door. And I would loathe to have the court know of her and me. Keith blinks, brows furrowed, his mouth opens for a moment, then closes. He tries again, shifting awkwardly under the intensity of her stare. That isn't what I was expecting. She smirks, and this time her innocence in her eye. No, I suppose not. But it is relevant. She is of the summer court, and her name is Veronica. Keith's heart trips, breath coming in quick and sharp. Aksha's eyes never leave his. She wants you to be good, play nice, and pretend. To put that blood of yours to use and lie. To be patient for once in your life and not do anything stupid. Her lips twitch at that. Her words, not mine. He swallows, around the lump in his throat. Are they coming from me? He whispers. Lance. Aksha just smiles, leans back in her chair, and steeples her fingers in front of her face. It's time to prepare you for court. Well, he has to get along all this. There's a lot of preparation in order for him to become the Winter Knight, their Winter Knight. Aksha has a lot of talking about things. I don't think I'm very good at voice of Aksha. So I know Aksha is a woman. I know she's a fitness woman, but she's like a very strong one. But if you want to see the picture of Aksha, yeah, I'm not that very good at it. So I'm sorry. I watched Voltron for like a few years ago, and I completely forgot about it. I did not rewatch it. So I'm sorry, because I don't remember what the voice of Aksha looked like. She's far more of a Russian, I think. Her accent, her voice is like a Russian, but she's not that Russian. I'm gonna look through again so that I had to look over so that I'm kind of messed up. Apparently, I am not very good at the voice, but that's not a little kind of related to it. But sorry. But I'm just gonna move on. But yeah, knows. Aksha knew all the information. Knew all about Keith. That that he's a little wild as before. Hmm. But yeah, there are now. They just want Key now to be the successor for the Winter Knight because Sendak was before, and now, yeah, Key will be their successor. Okay, let's just continue. So let's get on through. Okay, I'm gonna look the wrong. Yeah, we got Aksha now, and then we got Siegfried. Siegfried is her. Okay, all right. Come along, come along, come along. Have fun with your little training session, one of the other guards sings. The tall, slim, lithe one. She stands in the tall as Aksha enters the room, leaning around her to wave her fingers at Key. He just glares, arms crossed over his chest. Aksha has encouraged him to keep up the scowl and glare. It's as good a mask as any while he's here, and not only will it be easier for him to maintain, but it also might keep some Faye from with him. It has no effect on the woman though. Ezor, he's told to call her. Siegfried, a large hulking one, just circles. Didn't know when Lotor brought home the knight. He was actually bringing Aksha a lover. She needs it. She is far too uptight. Aksha ignores them, slamming the door shut behind her. The barrier around it shimmers back into place, fading. Only once they're alone does she sigh, exasperation clear. He's found that Aksha, despite how she appears, is actually quite expressive. At least around him, it's subtle, but it's honestly a little like looking in a mirror. Everything about reading her is exactly what Paige has said about him. She collapses into the chair across from him, and they both share a withering look. There's an unspoken agreement not to talk about the other's assumptions about the relationship. There's a little point in arguing with them, and at least this way they'll be left in private for these lessons. Aksha's gaze then slides to the table between them, one brow lifting as she looks over the meal spread out on a platter. It matches the one on the silver platter near the door, one from last night and one from this morning, both untouched. And yet, despite the passage of time, the food looks as fresh as ever, unwilted, unsoiled, delicious and tempting. He's willing to bet even the serving temperature is unchanged. Faith food is a marvel, but one he hasn't indulged in. You'll have to eat eventually. Her gaze slides back to him. You'll weaken without it. He has a long, frustrated sigh through his nose, looking away. I know where your hesitation lies. The reputation of fear of food precedes itself, and has been a tool to trap humans here for millennia. Her lips curl into a new smile. But you're not human. It will not be dangerously addictive, nor will it ruin human food for you. It is simply food. Though I personally think it's better than what you eat in the human realm. He glares a moment, waiting her words. She's saying to being blunt with him, knowing that unless she says something that can't possibly be misconstrued, he'll hesitate believing her. He appreciates her straightforward honesty, and he's come to appreciate her company because of it. Fine. He reaches out for some sort of bun, gleaming on top of butter and sugar, fluffy and round and delicate. When he bites into the sweet roll, a jam unlike anything he's ever tasted comes to lap on his tongue. Embarrassingly, he groans. Aksha chuckles. We'll get to work once you're done. Would you like some privacy? He scowls at her, practicing the art of staying silent, but stuffing his face with food. But little Aksha, well, no, Aksha has a point to get into it, but he'll have to get used to it. Now he's trapped in the winter realm, but he has to prepare himself for becoming the knight. That is a little bit of process. This is how they wanted to become the knight of some sort. But hey, I'm a storyteller. Key throws open the doors to a large wardrobe, immediately forced to a coughing fit as dust is thrown into the air. When he recovers, squinting through the tears in his eyes, he gasps, which just caused him to cough more. What the? It whizzes between breaths. That is a weapons closet, Aksha says from across the room, where she's pulling back the heavy velvet curtains. He's been moving around in the dark long enough, and curiosity about his new surrounding has gotten the best of him. Yeah, thanks. Gaze moves slowly around the inside of the wardrobe. Weapons of every sort: swords, daggers, axes, whips, mauls, flails, and a wide variety of sharp pointed things. They look cool, but Keith has no name for. None of them are made from iron. It's all wood and crystal, decorated in silver and gold and gems. Yet they look just as deadly, if not more so. Yet they look just as deadly, if not more so, than their human realm counterparts. I can see that. It's a whole arsenal. Akshay hung softly. Not quite. Those are just Sendak's favorites. A shiver ran down Keith's spine at a time, stomach twisting and recalling as memories of a missing eye and the malicious grin flickered through his mind. Lance screams, shivers blood, Keith's own chest burning. Sendak? The old knight? The one you must have killed? Yes. These are the knight's quarters, and thus his old room. It seems pretty barren, he mutters, for as decadent and rich as this room is. There's not much of a personal touch, little more than a dressed-up display or hotel room. He didn't spend much time here, if any, at all. He closed the wardrobe doors, sealing away Sindak's private collection. The majesty of the weapons has soured. When he turns, his breath is taken away. Whoa! Aksha has pulled open all the curtains, revealing the 3 large floor-length windows. Each one has intricate designs of silver running through them, holding the panes in place, like stained glass without color, creating a monochrome design. She turns to look at him. Have you not looked outside since you arrived? No, it hadn't crossed my mind. It's a lie. A benefit of being an Ironblood. Truthfully, he had thought about it. He just didn't want to. The thought was too overwhelming, too terrifying. It'll make this whole thing that much more real. He never wanted to be in the fairy realm. Always feared it. But now he steps up to the windows beside Aksha and gazes out into a land of magic and wonder. A land unlike anything he's ever known. And yet, it's a land that sings to his blood. The Winter Court is located in the castle palace. That much Aksha has told him. A sprawling and intimidating structure of stone and crystal, with gardens of winter roses and icy blooms, surrounded by perpetual winter, nestled in a mountain valley. Outside the window, mountains rise around them in a perfect bowl, forests of evergreens and skeletal trees covered in snow and a layer of ice that forms the shape of the leaves that they're missing, blowing in the wind like actual living leaves. The palace rises up out of the center of the valley. Dark stone and spires, Gothic in architecture, intimidating, beautiful, haunting, breathtaking. An icy lake glimmers in the valley below. The sky is crystal clear. Shades of pink, orange, gold, and violet span across the blue expanse in the wide brushstrokes. On the lighter western horizon, you can see the last rays of the sun crawling over the mountains, and in the darker eastern horizon, you can see the faint sparkle of stars where the sky goes navy. He knows that this is how the sky will always look here, a realm of perpetual twilight, a moment of the in-between, trapped in time and locked in its own bubble of space. It's beautiful, he whispered, quiet and odd, as he looks across the icy-kissed landscape, snow reflecting and painted colors of the sky. Of course it is, Aksha says from inside, a soft smile on her face. I didn't expect that. She doesn't have to ask what he means. Winter is just as beautiful as summer. I know, but this court has a reputation. The Winter Court is known for being harsh, but we simply do not mince words or hide our intentions behind sunny smiles like the Summer Court. I know what they teach you in the human realm. I know how your people see us. But much of that representation has come in Zarkon's reign. Her expression goes tight. Eyes steel and lips pursed to a small frown. Fundamentally, we're no different than the Summer Court. We oppose each other, but we're not opposites. There is no good or evil amongst the Fae, only the powerful and the powerless. Fae can be judged by individuals, not by court. You would do well to remember that. He knows that better than most, having grown up being warned of any and all Fae that fall in love with one, loving another as family, and building friendships with more. He doesn't trust the Winter Court, and he'll admit that he's absolutely terrified to be here. But he can admit that the Fey Realm, this pocket of winter, is beautiful. Finally get the understood now why all this behind of the Winter Court is so terrifying, so terrible. But it kind of makes sense to it. You'll see that the Fays, they're not like each other, not the opposites. They're not like they're enemies. They're the same, but they're in a different season. Winter is just being a little cold. Summer is just, hey, it's summertime. So in the winter, yeah, I don't mind being cold, but I don't want to catch colds. No, because I don't want to be cuffed. I mean, winter is fine because it's a white snow, but snow can get a little bit complicated there. So I've dealt with that because I live in the United States for almost about a decade. That's a fun fact for me. So okay. Learning to use the glamour is hard, far harder than Aksha anticipated. She doesn't try to hide her impatience. Utilizing basic illusion magic for Fae is second nature. Glamour comes to them as naturally as breathing. They don't have to concentrate on it. They barely have to think about it. As effortless as deciding to walk or flick one's wrist. A subconscious thought followed by an action. They take the magic out of very air, out of their core. It's part of them, their blood, their energy. They take the quintessence of the universe around them and manipulate it on a microscopic level. They build clothes out of nothing but air and light, solidifying them into something real. They can use it to hide from human eyes and to alter their appearances. Fae have many types of magic affinities, but glamour is part of who they are. A Fae without mastery of glamour would be no different from a human not knowing how to eat. It's fundamental, instinctual at the core, and that the later finesse is learned. He, however, never had to learn. It takes almost a full day for Aksha to even help him figure out how to access that part of himself. It's a corner of his magic that he's never touched. And when he finally figures out what to do, he realizes that it barely feels like magic, or at least nothing like his fire or blood affinities. It's new and light and airy, and the first time he makes clothes, he's convinced Aksha can see right through them, even with the weight of them, and even seeing their solidity with his own eyes. His mind can barely comprehend that it's real, that he's willed something into existence. It takes some effort, but once he figures out what to do, the instincts comes easily. Crafting his glamour becomes second nature, but they run into a couple more snags. Holding his glamour takes longer to learn. He wants to concentrate on it, holding it with an iron-like grip in his mind, until a vein is popping in his temple, and a headache is brewing. But that just makes it harder to hold, makes the glamour tremble and waver and dissipate. Aksha tells him that it needs to be like breathing, natural, built it, will it into existence, and then trust it to stay. It will stay until it dismisses it. Thinking about it, worrying about it, just makes it worse. It's a difficult concept to adjust to, and he practices after Aksha has left him for the day. With nothing else to do and knowing that this is an integral skill to have to keep up his charade and survive at court, he practices long into the night. But not just constructing clothes from glamour, he stands in front of the mirror and layers the illusion magic over his body. It clings to him like a second skin, like static tingling against his flesh, like a silken blanket wrapped tight. It makes his ears look shorter and rounded. He hides his fangs. He makes his sclera white. He pulls his claws in and colors them pink, makes his hair black, makes his skin pale ivory, flush at the cheeks and rosy in the chest. Healthy, human, normal, save for the shimmering layer of diamond dust that he can now see, indicating that it's all an illusion, that none of it is real. And then he lets it all fade, until he once more faced with his new normal. It still looks foreign, it doesn't look real, like he dressed up in a costume. Wonders if he'll ever get used to it. Wonders if Lance will ever get used to it. Wonders what Lance will think. It's a thought that keeps him up at night, while he's lying in the bed that's too big, too soft, and too strange. One that smells wrong, surrounded by curtains and a high vaulted ceiling. When sleeping is difficult because the air feels different, feels live and thick. When his fears and doubts and worries come pressing in on him from all sides, screaming at him in the dark. He worries about Shiro, about what this means for his new human life, about whether or not he'll have to throw it all away. If he escapes, will they have to move? What about Adam? Keith hates the thought of Cheryl giving up everything he's dared to let himself love. And what about Pitch? Without them, what will she do? He hopes not anything stupid. He knows she'll be alright in the end, but he hates to leave her. What about Cosmo? What about Hunk and Shay? What about Matt? What about Lance? What will happen to them? Will he ever get to see him again? Even if he gets out, will he have to run far, far away and leave Lance behind because Laura needs him? Would Lance even want him now? He looks not only Faye, but Winter Faye. He looks like himself, but he doesn't look the same boy Lance fell for. The thought makes his insides squirm, butterflies and hornets wreaking havoc in his gut, nerves flittering around beneath his skin, anxious and nauseating, skin heating up even as his heart feels cold. It makes him feel stupid. Here he is, trapped in the fairy realm, an Idleblood masquerading as a changeling in a winter court of all places, and he's getting nervous and flustered and panicky over whether or not Lance might still be attracted to him. It's stupid. But he'd rather worry about this, rather dream about Lance and holding him and touching him and tasting him, feeling that devilish tongue and those rolling hands, than dwell on the danger of his situation. He falls asleep lost in memories of being wrapped up in strong tan arms, and hopes that he'll wake to find this has all been a twisted, fear-induced nightmare. Unfortunately, he's never that lucky. He's stuck there, and it's not a nightmare, this is all surreal. He'll become a knight, the Winter Knight, and they're trying to use Keith as an assassinator and try to kill it, and now Shiro's job is to stop Keith from doing that. It's like they're trying to kill everybody. That's the knight's job. Okay. He's presented to the Winter Court with far less fanfare than he had anticipated. As expected, Fae from all across the Winter Court lands have arrived, crowding to the massive ballroom at the center of the palace, all to gawk at him, all to see the new Winter Knight, all to judge and engage this new changeling in their midst. There's no doubt in his mind that this event, this gathering, feast and gala, is for him. From the moment he steps into the ballroom, he can feel the entire court's eyes on him. However, thankfully, blissfully, gratefully, unlike what he expected, he's never actually introduced to anyone. His given name is never spoken. He's never put directly in the spotlight. He's never asked to speak. In fact, the royal family never once looks at him. Loto only looks at him once, and it's when Aksha leads him to their meeting spot outside the ballroom. They gather with Lotor and his other generals, because that apparently is what they known as. His bodyguard, confidants, most loyal subjects, the only ones he trusts. Aksha he knows, Enzor and Zephrid he's seen. The fourth is new, a female by the name of Narti, with no eyes, cat-like ears, and a lizard-like tail covered in dangerous-looking spines. Lothar gives him a once-over, eyes critical and scrutinizing before finally nods. A little rustic, but it will do. He's not expected to know Fae fashion. Yeah, that's another snag that he and Aksha came across. Glamour is a magic illusion into reality, of imagination become real. And Keith doesn't have a great imagination for clothes. In the end, Aksha had to help him, and he ended up modeling his outfit for what he remembers knights wearing in movies, with a little flair of what he's seen Aksha wear. In the end, looking between them, he concludes that he looks like a purple and black fantasy knight with a little more bodysuits and form of flair, which is kind of exactly what he was going for. The most uncomfortable part, however, is the fact that Aksha had insisted that he leave his shirt open enough to reveal a V of his chest. He didn't have to show the entirety of his knight brand, but he had to show enough to prove it was there. He wishes he could wear armor, or hang a sword at his side, or literally anything to make himself feel less exposed, defended, and armed. He'd give anything to look even a little more intimidating, or like he belonged. But he's sorely out of place as he falls into step behind Lotor and his flanking generals, dressed in nothing more than a glamour and a solid mask of irritable indifference. The ballroom itself is massive. The room is built with 7 sides, a black and white mosaic of a 7-pointed star covering the floor, circled by a crescent moon. The ceiling rises high, and as Key tilts his head to look, he counts 7 floors total, the ground floor and 6 balconies circling above. The entire room is flooded with Fae. They crowd the bottom floor. They push and shove their way into the balcony railings, lean over and holding tight as some of them hang over the edge. They're in the air, as those with wings use their revenge to get an aerial view above the crowd. It's an onslaught to his senses, which he's found have become far more sensitive in his new half-Fae existence. There's so many of them, so many things to see and take in. Fae of all colors, of all shapes and sizes, tall and short, willowy thin and burly and curvy and large. Fae with proportions that are far more human standard. Fae with claws and teeth, with mouths too wide and fingers too long. Fae with strange eyes, many eyes, one eye. Fae with skin and fur and scales. Fae with animalistic features, impossible things, improbable things, ugly things, beautiful things. And they all share. He feels their eyes like hot coals ranking across his flesh, eager to pick him apart. He hears them, the whispers, high and low, shrill voices, gravely voices, growls and hisses and voices that crawl across the skin like ants. And after a few steps, it's already become too much. He stops trying to take it in, stops trying to absorb it. He shuts down, retreating to himself, building up his walls at a rapid pace as the things he's practiced his entire life come to him reflexively. He turns his eyes straight ahead, focused on the back of Lotor's head, thick-shaded but unseen, chin held high, expression different and bored, jaw set and lips pursed. He blocks everything out as he walks, ignores them until they blur in his peripheral vision, lets their chatter become white noise. He pretends he can't see them, even as they surround him, like he's done for his entire life. The walk to the other end of the room feels like it takes forever. Time drags on, and every second feels like agony under the scrutiny of the court. And then, Lotor's generals step to the side, fanning out to position themselves in a giant raised dais. Atop the dais stand 3 grand thrones, made entirely crystal, carved to look like shards of ice, colors indigo, deep purple, and crystalline blue. The center one is the largest, and it sits empty. To its right, in the second largest throne, sits whom Key can only assume is the Winter Queen, a hunched feminine figure covered from head to toe in a cloak. Her face remains mostly shadowed, but you can see pointed features and violet skin. Long white hair falls from her hood, but unlike Lotor's, hers looks ragged and frayed. Her hands rest on the throne's arms, fingers long and hooked and wrinkled. Key tries not to look at her, but he can feel the chill of her piercing gaze. Lotor climbs the steps, and Key hesitates, but Aksha catches his eye, giving him a nod. She had told him where to stand. So as Lotor throws himself, both with grace and lazy ease, into the smallest throne left of the king's empty one. He climbs the steps after him. He moves to stand just off to the side, atop the dais, but behind the thrones, just past Lotor, close enough to be summoned, but far enough away to be removed. And that's when Key realizes why he's not presented to the court the way he thought he would be. He isn't a person here. He's a possession, a tool. The greatest weapon the Winter royalty possesses, a Fae bound to them, but not to the lost, a sword without a shackle. This isn't a gala to present him. It's meant to show the court's power. He stands off to the side as a pretty little figurine, a display, a threat, proof of the royalty's might, proof that the summer court should fear them once again, proof that the stalemate is in danger of shattering. And what would a threat be without people to be threatened? Just as Aksha told him there would be, off to the side, on a dais that is much smaller but distinct from the rest of the ballroom, at a table of formal chairs that look more like a cage than comfort, sit the envoy from the summer court. Key catches sight of them easily enough. As diverse as the Winter Fae are, the summer Fae still stand out, dressed in different colors and different passion, not to mention the wide berth of the Winter Court gives them, like a bubble of space one might give victims of the plague. They're quarantined there on that small dais in the corner, on display just as much as he is, sectioned off, invited to the festivities, but not expected to take part, expected to watch, to fear, and to revel in the Winter Court's display of power. There are a good 2 dozen of them at least. One sits in the center, long blonde hair, pointed ears, pink markings beneath her eyes. Her clothes are pastel and bright, far more than anything else in the room. She sits at the center of the group, in the large chair they offered. 3 faces sit to either side of her, but one in particular draws Keith's eye. Dark skin, a short bob of darker hair, sharp blue eyes, and an upturned nose. So similar to Lance, and yet so wholly different. Veronica. She's here. She's really here. Keith's heart leaps in his chest, twisting up when their eyes meet. But her expression doesn't change. Hard, steely eyes, lips pursed, indifferent, intense, formidable. The only shift he sees is the twitch at her jaw and the tightening of her hands on the arms of her chair. Be good, plain eyes, and pretend. To put a blood of yours to use and lie. To be patient for once in your life, and not do anything stupid. He swallows hard, giving her what he hopes is an imperceptible nod before letting his eyes roam over the rest of their envoy. Behind the 7 seats is a collection of what he assures to be lesser pay, servants or bodyguards or something similar. Most of them wear cloaks of summer colors, faces half hidden and heads down, hands clasped respectfully, sitting behind the 7 chairs with a sense of silent respect. It's with an overwhelmingly conflicting wave of both disappointment and relief that he realizes that Lance isn't among them. There they are, the summer court's envoy. Here he is, the winter night. And with the lazy clap of Lothar's hands, the night of celebration begins. Winterfade cheering and howling, and the ballroom coming alive in a riffing mass of primal revelry. Okay, let's finally start the commands. Everybody's put it all together, and now Keith becoming the Winter Knight. And where's Lance? Lance is not there. So, all the phases are coming in together, both summer and winter courts. Okay, let's start with the celebration. That Keith is now the new Winter Knight. Alright, let's just get on with this mess, shall we? So it begins. A Fade court gala is a sight to behold, and yet once he gets past the beauty and grotesque visages of Fade without glamour, it all becomes surprisingly boring. A feast is brought out, layering the long tables that line the edges of the room. Fae move about, some eating delicately and some shoveling it into odd-sized mouths to gnaw with 2 large teeth. They hold goblets encrusted with crystals and carved from polished wood, decorated in silver and gold, drinking brightly colored liquid with a vigor that has it spilling from the corners of their lips. They're elegant, they're a mess, they're fey. Music plays from somewhere, but Keith can't locate the band. It echoes hauntingly throughout the vaulted ballroom, and he's certain that the volume would be the same on any of the 7 floors. Inescapable, all-encompassing, becoming one with the very air. They mingle, they dance, both on the floor and in the air. They sing and they gossip. The crowd rifts and shifts, ever moving as they flit from one group to another. There might be a wide variety of Fae here, but Keith notices they tend to stick to their own kind, similar castes and breeds. The high Fae look inhumanly beautiful and stick up their noses at the low Fae. The low Fae are strange and grotesque, monsters and boogeymen that haunt human folklore, and they sneer at the high Fae. The pixies only cling to other winged folk. The gnomes hide in the shadows and around corners, scaring between legs of dancers. The animalistic Fae hold fast to one another, staying in packs and stalking through the crowd, eyeing the others warily. It doesn't take the court long to lose interest in him, especially with the royals ignoring his existence and igniting the festivities. And once they do, he allows himself to look around, to really take it all in, to observe these people he's always been taught to fear. And he does fear. Don't get him wrong. He knows very well that if any of them knew that he was real in Ironblood, he'll be slaughtered in an instant. He knows he's in danger in this realm, but especially in this court. He knows where he stands, and he won't let his guard down. Still, as he's left to be a piece of scenery, no different than a prize figurine behind the thrones. He can't help but notice in his observations that it all seems shockingly and surprisingly, well, human. They look different. The rules are different. There's magic in the air, and their clothes are woven from light. Their food is too good to be true, and he's certain their wine is, too. They look inhuman. Some are not even humanoid, and most would strike fear into anyone's heart. And yet, the way they interact, the way they celebrate, the way they stick to their own, it's also human. And that, at least, has allowed his heart to slow down and the tension in his shoulders to ease. He keeps his gaze ever vigilant and ever moving. He catches more than a few looking at him. He knows they're sneaking peeks occasionally and whispering about him throughout the crowd, but he doesn't make eye contact. He keeps his eyes moving, observant, indifferent, stone-faced and bored, like he were the new knight to be feared, keeping a watch out rather than a half-blood, scared, crapless, and just trying to take it all in. He tries to be subtle about it, but he also tries to look over at the summer court and void as often as he thinks he can get away with. Maybe he can get away with it more, now that he's thinking about it. After all, his job is essentially the court assassin, and he will be sent after the summer court specifically. So maybe it wouldn't be strange to sizing them up. It's as good of an excuse as any, so it takes the liberty to stare a little more than anything. He tries to catch Veronica's attention, but she pays him no mind. She outright ignores him, to the point where he can tell it's intentional. He does, however, catch the eye of one of the rob-serving fae. Most of them keep their eyes on the winter fae around them. Anyone who dares get too close to the safety of their dice. Some of the larger rob fae linger near the important seedy fae, whispering together, eating silently and politely sipping wine. But there's one particular who he catches staring before automatically looking away, only to look back to find them still staring. They're not shy about it. Most of the face is hidden by a hood, but Key can catch a faint glimmer of eyes as their head is fixed in his direction. He can't read their expression, but it unnerves him all the same. He thinks fae stares will always do that, hates being put under the microscope of their sharp cases, has gone his whole life trying to not be noticed, and somehow having one stare at him so intently is worse than dealing with the whole room. A shiver rolls down his spine, and as he strains with it, tensing as he lifts his chin and looks away. He avoids the summer court dice for a while, despite his curiosity. He's eyeing a few pixies dancing in the air when the crowd in front of the throne parts, moving out of the way for the blonde fae of the summer court and Boyd to step through. She walks with purpose, like she expects them to move for her, flanked by two others and backed by three more robe fae. Lothar rises to greet her, stepping down the dais to her level and bowing before her. They exchange pleasantries, oozing sweetness and tied up in a bow of excruciatingly sharp formality, before Lothar offers his arm and leads her away. Ramel, he had heard Lothar called her. As they walk away, Key glances at the thrones, all empty. The queen had left shortly after the festivities had began, slipping silently away and never appearing again. He looks back to the summer court dice, only to find Veronica gone. Just a few fae remain, along with a handful of the robe fae. His brows furrow, but then he hears a sharp, short whistle. He turns sharply, finding Aksha standing at the bottom of the dice, off to the side where he's positioned. He glances around, uncertain, but at her short nod, he breaks away from his assigned spot and hurries down and steps to her. Look sharp, she says quietly, voice clip. Follow me. Hold your mask. Despite his pounding heart, he focuses on his face, forcing himself to relax and feeling the muscles situate in place. Bored, indifferent, a little bit of an irritated scowl, locking away all his worry and fear with uncertainty. Good. She gives a short nod before turning on her heels and walking away. He hesitates for only a moment before following, sticking to her wake as she steps through the crowd. Faye move out of her way, not with the same sort of respect as for the royals, but with a certain level of begrudging fear and acceptance. She looks at none of them, eyes focused ahead, pace clipped and quick, forcing Keith to lengthen his strides to keep up. They leave the ballroom, stepping out into a wide corridor. Fae spill out here, mingling in small groups, all turning to stare as they pass. She leads him past tall arching windows, down a few steps. The Fae get fewer and fewer, and he doesn't speak until they left the last of them behind. Where are we going? She doesn't answer, but she leads him out the door into an open stone patio. There are benches here, statues. The outside cast of stones crawling with deep red ivy. She leads him to a half wall across the patio, down the steps into a sprawling garden. There! She stops, pointing. Keith follows her gaze. Across the garden begins a hedge maze, one that stretches wide far, crawling away from the castle proper. Go into the maze. Why? Just go. He takes a few steps, urged on by her sharp exasperation, and fueled by the trust he's grown to feel in her. But he stops, turns to look over his shoulder. Where do I go inside it? It doesn't matter. His breath furrowed. How does it not? You'll be found. He's just watching. Just go. Be quick about it. It's cryptic. Makes all sorts of warning bells go off. But she knows Veronica. She didn't lie about that. She can't, and Veronica knows what he means to Lance. He just has to have faith. So he takes a deep breath, stills his nerves, and rushes across the garden to dive headlong into the hedge maze. It rises high above his head, nearly double his height. The path's wide enough for maybe 4 people to walk side by side. The leaves are deep purple, and the bushes are dotted with flowers that look carved from crystal. But when he pauses to touch, finds their petals soft as silk. He's not sure what to do, so he just runs. Sprints until he reaches the dead end, then he picks a direction and goes. His feet hit the packed dirt with muted thumps. The air here is cold. It bites at his lungs and freezes his lips. Breath fogging with every exhale. His match burns inside his chest, oozing warmth through his veins to keep him comfortable enough to keep going. Keep going. Keep going. For what he doesn't know, adrenaline sinks in his abs. Anticipation and uncertainty crawl like ants beneath his skin, prickling and stinging and keeping him on edge. Then, as he passes an open path, a hand darts out and grabs him, yanking him nearly off his feet and through an archway. He stumbles, spinning to tear his arm out of that grip, and forearm burning as his dagger shoots from his blood to nestle in his palm. He turns, crouching, blade at the ready and eyes wild. Whoa, whoa, Keith, hey, it's me. He doesn't recognize the voice, but he does recognize the face, only barely. Some recruit Faye who have been staring at him. They hastily throw their hood back, revealing a sharp face with large emerald eyes and copper skin. Their hair is ear-length and blonde, nose wide. They stand there, grinning, hands held up in surrender and eyes squinting at the edges with joy and relief. Keith's grip on his dagger tightens, and he backs away a step. Who are you? He snaps, ready to dart away if this isn't the person Aksha sent him his find. But they're from the summer court, so maybe the face rings. Hands fall to the sides as their lip curls incredulously. Who am I? What are you? They blink, face going blank as something dawns on them, and they stagger back a step. Oh, I forgot. Hang on, let me just... They close their eyes, breathing in deep before letting out a long, slow exhale, and as they do, their body relaxes, and smoke starts to peel away from them. It takes Keith a moment to realize he's watching a glamour dissipate. A glamour he hadn't been noticed was there, pulling away from their skin and fading into the air like mist, blowing away the crisp breeze, like dust shaking off their form, revealing different features and different colors, and... Lance? Keith breathes, jaw going slack and air punched from his lungs. Lance grins, wide and beautiful, and Keith rushes forward, hand and arm staying as his dagger is pulled back into his blood before none of that matters because Lance. Keith crashes into him, hands cupping his face and digging into his hair and pulling forward until their lips are meeting. Hungry, hard, tactless, and messy, but he doesn't care because it's Lance, and Lance's arms are wrapping around his waist to steady them as their balanced rocks, absently finding their footing as they devour each other's lips. There's nothing gentle about it, nothing soft or fond, just desperate passion and painful relief as he bites into the kiss, and Lance bites right back. When he finally pulls away, they're both breathing hard, hot breath mingling in the cold air. It shivers, but Lance is so warm. Their bodies flush, pressed tight, and neither willing to move away. Pushing closer with every heavy breath, Keith's finger moved deeper into Lance's hair, eyes still shut, forehead pressed tight enough to bruise. What are you doing here? He whispers, voice ragged and hoarse. He turns his head, nose brushing against Keith's. How? Your glamour. I didn't even notice. I'm Laura's favorite, Lance says, simply, and Keith can hear the smug smile playing across his lips. She has powerful illusion magic. Most Fae won't even be able to see through it. Not that they'd be looking too close at a lowly servant. Keith's lips curl. Breathless laughs, slip from him, pops a thought between them. He pushes into Lance, turning his head to rub their foreheads until it hurts. You're insane! His hand slapped Lance's hair, cupping his jaw, thumbs caressing sharp cheekbones. Absolutely insane. Lance chuckles, but his mirth is short-lived. It fades, replaced by something more somber. Keith can feel the wrinkle of his brow. What happened, Keith? How? He doesn't need to elaborate. Keith knows exactly what it means. He sighs. Your phone. Lutz had it. He used it to lure me out into the woods by the ferry. Lotor, Lance hisses, and Keith feels his jaw clench. He pulls back, just far enough to look at him, and really get a look at him because, wow. I couldn't find it, and I thought I had lost it. I contacted Hank and had him retrace my steps all over town in case it had fallen out of my pocket. I even had him walk through the woods, and he hates going near the ring. I don't even know how or when Lothar got someone to get into my rooms. But what? Lance blinks, brows furrowed and lips pursing as eyes flicker between Keith's. Why are you looking at me like that? Like that? Happens to be with his head tilted to the side, cupping Lance's face in both hands, and what feels like a small fond smile. Nothing, just his thumbs caress his cheekbones again, tracing over the bright blue V's beneath his eyes roaming a smattering of white freckles of his tanned cheeks. His eyes are long and pointed at the tip. His hair is the same as it always has been, but it's snow white. I've never seen you like this, without your glamour. He always wondered what was beneath the patches of glamour that Lance has always refused to drop. Now he knows, and it's just Lance. His eyes go wide, eyes that are so much more vibrant in his realm, and without his glamour, catching the lights like crystals and churning like the ocean. Realization dawned on him. His posture shifts, shoulders rising and gaze darting away, voice quiet and hesitant, and he asks, "Is it weird?" "No." The answer surprises him. He always knew high fae were inhumanly alluring, but he never thought he'd ever get past the human part enough to fall head over heels. And yet here he is, a light laugh making him breathless as he leans in, lips move against Lance. "You're beautiful." Kiss is unlike their first, soft and sweet, lingering and slow, light as a caress. But Lance leans away and keeps chasing after him as his eyes open. His brows furrow, worried lines appear as he looks him over. It's only then, when faced with Lance's concern and uncertainty, does Keith remember what he looks like, and that Lance has already spent hours staring at him. "Keith," he whispers, lifting a hand and laying on Keith's neck, thumb brushing the base of his ear. He tilts his head, and despite his concern, there's a rage brewing in the sea of his eyes. "What did they do to you?" Keith sighs, eyes closing, hiding away his yellow sclera. Wonder if it's too late to put on the human glamour he's been practicing. "Lotor." His voice raspy, cracked and wavering. It goes through. "He pulled my fey blood to the surface. I don't know, but..." He doesn't know what to say, how to say it, but that doesn't seem to matter. Lance understands all the same. "This is you." As Keith opens his eyes, he finds Lance staring. That storm in his gaze calming. His lips are parted. He looks awed, fascinated, transfixed, and when he speaks, he sounds marveled. "This is you." Keith swells under that look, warm tingling in his veins, burdened with a touch. "Yeah." And then something amazing happens. Something so incredibly inherently Lance. His lips curl at the corners. That familiar, playful smirk returning. His eyes crinkle, eyebrow cocking. "And here I thought you couldn't get any hotter." Laughter bursts from him is sudden and silent, choking the way up and causing the soul by the spasm. In the wicked, he wraps his arms around Lance's waist, burrowing his face in his neck, and nuzzling into the warmth of his skin. And when his laughter finally fades, he asks, mumbled against collarbones, "So, it's not weird?" No, there's no hesitation, and it's softened by fond amusement. And then, softly, with an endearing shyness as he runs his fingers through Keith's hair, not so suddenly running a fingertip along the point of his ear. "I like it." Keith hides a smile against Lance's neck. Lance pulls away all too soon, and it puts distance between them, hands on Keith's shoulders. He watches as the soft openness fades, slipping away beneath his hardening expression. Shut eyes, lips pressed into a thin line. But we'll talk about it later. We need to go. The court thinks you're Changling. I don't know how, but... Lotor. What? Lotor called me Changling when he brought out all of this. He waves his hand around, gesturing to his face. He's been telling everyone that's what I am. The hands around deepens. Storm behind his eyes like, I don't trust this. He grabs Keith's wrist. We need to go. I can get us out of the Winterlands. We need to find a way to hide you. I don't know where, but we'll figure it out. He freezes, eyes going wide as he stares over Keith's shoulder. I hope I'm not interrupting. A voice silky smooth and rich as honey, oozing confidence and steep in satisfaction. Shiver runs down his spine, sailing through his veins like fire. Spins, dagger shooting out of his palm, skin prickling and burning as his fingers wrapped around the handle. He brandishes it, pulling lands behind him. Lotus stands in the hedge archway, one hand on his hip and the other hanging at his side, regarding them with sharp, amused eyes. His smirk makes Keith's stomach recoil. Down, little knight, he says, one at a race. Wouldn't want anyone seeing you threatening royal blood, now would we? He walks past him, ignoring the way Keith shovels with him, keeping himself between Lotor and Lance. He lowers his dagger, but he keeps it in his hand, at the ready. His eyes never leave the prince as he settles on the bench, leaning back on his hands and stretching his long legs out, crossed at the ankles. I have a proposal, if you're willing to listen. Why would we do that? Because you seem to be in a bit of a predicament. His smile curls, a cat playing with a mouse. Something sparkles behind his eyes, a fervor that Keith can quite the place. Even if you escape here, my mother will never stop haunting you. And next time, she will kill you to pass your mantle on to someone else. Not if she can find me. His eyes flash. He clicks his tongue, lowering. She'll always find you. Make no mistake. But I believe I have a solution to all of our problems. Mine, yours, Lance's, even those of your summer counterparts. Keith tenses, and Lance's hand shifts in his grip, moving to leave their fingers together. Squeezed tightly as he steps up beside him, chin raised. Chillingly hollow mask slotting into place. Voice hard and formal as he says, and what proposal do you have? Lotus' grin reveals the sharp fangs, and as he gestures the stone bench across from him, Keith can't help but feel that they've fallen right into his trap. Come on, take a seat. Let's talk. Oh shoot, guys. Oh shoot. What is going to be his proposal? And it's just giving us the cliffhangers? You rat little bastard. Okay, let me look at the comments right now because... Oh, the ending is say, what's the proposal? What's gonna be the proposal? Lotus' proposal. Oh gosh. This is like the villain of it, but this is just the prince of it. Oh my god. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, he's gonna talk about something, and this is gonna be not a good ending, guys. This is... Holy sheesh. I can't swear. I'm not gonna swear on this content. I'm not gonna swear on this MLFF. I am not gonna swear, but holy sheesh. What the hell just happened? Oh my god. Yep. I know it's gonna be the plot thickens right now, and holy crap. I am going to lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. I really want this next chapter going to happen. I really want this next chapter going to happen. So, guys, this is really ridiculous now because we're getting into the next chapter, and I'm going to lose my mind for all of this. Okay. Anyways, I really want to read the next chapter, then chapter 9, but we'll have to see that from the next video, okay? So, alright. Bye, everyone. I'll see you in a bit. Not seeing a bit, but whatever next video is going to be. Okay. Bye, everyone.